Hi there, I'm Dr. Brant Hulsebus, and welcome to another edition of the ICA Sports and Fitness Science Council podcast. Now, today we're back with a familiar face. Most of you have been watching the podcast. You've met Dr. Todd McDougle before. He is our chairman of our little group here that we do. And I had a unique experience at the beginning of December. Dr. McDougle invited me to a sports situation, and I was able to learn a little bit what he does. And I had fun because I've been telling all my patients I got to work on the biggest human beings alive. And they've been having fun trying to get like football players. I'm like, no, bigger. Wrestlers? No, bigger. So why don't you tell them a little bit where we were first, and then maybe dive a little bit to how we adjust these individuals different and why.
Well, absolutely. And Brad, listen, you have spent so much time working on these podcasts, and I just want to say, from me to you directly in front of everybody, thank you so much for doing it.
They're fun.
It is. I know you enjoy it, but it is work. It does take time away from other things that maybe you could be doing. But I know the ICA Sports Council and the ICA itself actually really truly appreciate you getting in there and digging in and really making some great productions. So thank you so much. As far as what you and I did in Madison, Wisconsin on December 5th, we started with a class, which I love to go ahead and say it was I think a once in a lifetime opportunity for many of our chiropractic colleagues, because for the most part, even after you get a master's degree at a lot of the chiropractic colleges, you come out with a master's and a tent and a flat table, and you're a sports chiropractor, and it couldn't be further from the truth. And I think that was one of the things that you were able to go ahead and see and witness firsthand, right? As far as how it worked. But, prepping that, obviously, the goal was to share with you guys the principles and the concepts behind working with strength athletes in particular, and how it was important to maintain this tensile tension, the tone, if you will, for a weightlifter or a strength athlete to go ahead and recruit as many fibers neurologically as possible. And going into the depth of why that is, and then taking the science that already exists and the science that actually started way back and the rest of the way out. And it's interesting, in the mid 90s, they got away from this thing called, the stretches, and went to a thing called dynamic warm-ups. And that, was based upon a lot of the research that was being put together by those people in exercise physiology. And the funny thing is that, it wasn't until I got engaged in 1997 that I saw it for what it was. And I was postulated a question by one of the top strength athletes in the world, a fellow by the name of Chad Coy. And Chad himself, by the way, is a exercise physiology person, and of course trainer for Parisi School and whatnot. But Chad says, "Hey, listen, I love getting adjusted, but I always feel sprung. I feel loose. I feel unstable." And he said, "Is there some way that you can come up with that will allow me to maintain strength and power, but still get the benefits of mobility and flexibility and things along those lines following the adjustment?" And that's what we did. We went to experimenting back in the late 90s, and I come up with it. And it was a short lever, high velocity burst application using a Thompson table. And that is a drop mechanism. Thompson table's been around since 1961. Actually, that's when Palmer College of Chiropractic had it put into play at Palmer School of Chiropractic, actually, I guess it was. And yeah, it's from that point on, it's the combination of all these things in chiropractic and what I've done. It's created this whole new package called McDougle Chiropractic Methods. And I've been, blessed to have people like yourself come and participate. So there you have it. So it's a long-winded version, I guess, but there's actually a lot to it, right?
The first thing like people ask me, they said, "You took care of a guy." I got to see Mr. Webb, Matt Webb, and he's 6'7". I looked up, I'm like 412 pounds. And they're like, "How did you put that guy on his side and get his lower back to adjust?" I'm like, "I wouldn't. First of all, he crushed me. And it would take like a whole bunch of levers and pulleys for me to be able to do that. But that's not at all what we do. It was all really short, quick drops. And what was fun for me to watch was these athletes would come over and see you, and you'd have them do a squat and get back up, and they looked at you like they were in some distress. And
Mhm.
then you lay them on their back and start flexing their legs while they're laying supine, and their legs weren't moving very far. Then you start going to town at the ankles and the toes, then to the knees, then to the hips themselves, the femur heads, and then we're flipping them over and we're looking at the sacrum, we're looking at all the different joints of the sacrum, and we haven't even got to the spine yet, and they're already moving better and looser than they have before. And then you're going to go up and do the spine afterwards, and they go all the way up to the top. And for me, it was just like the guys couldn't put their hands above their head, and they could do it right away afterwards. And I'm from a school of chiropractic where if you don't hear that thing go, you didn't do your job.
Mhm.
And so for me, it was seeing was believing, right? Seeing these guys do it immediately after. And so the rotational force, you talked a little bit about it, but why wouldn't you want to do a rotational force? Could you tell us that again?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, and there's really nothing wrong, I guess, if you will, with doing a side posture maneuver. Everybody does it, okay? I mean, even non-chiropractors are trying to duplicate it, right, wrong, or otherwise. But if you go ahead and you look at our colleagues within the chiropractic, 90 some percent, according to statistics, actually do the side posture application. In strength sports, you got to remember our goal is not to create a stretch. So we do not want to negatively affect the stretch receptors. If we go ahead and we put a person into a side posture, and then we go ahead and we bring it to tension to go ahead and get everything set up and ready to go for the adjustment, which is then the thrust afterwards. The initial phase of that is in itself a lumbar roll stretch, period. That's it. All right. Full stop.
Yeah,
It is a
yeah,
stretch,
get them there without doing it. Yeah,
right? And then you
yeah,
couple that with once the stretch, then you go ahead and you deliver an impulse, which is I don't know what they call it. It's there's what do they call it, low velocity, or there's a term. It's not what I do, which is a short lever high velocity burst application, but it's a different form, and I don't remember specifically how they go ahead and they describe it. But nonetheless, here you couple that with the fact that you have to think about how many joints you're crossing. So if I go ahead and I put a person in a side posture, obviously the IT band is stretching, the foot may be stretching, the glutes are stretching, the lumbars are stretching, the ribs are stretching, the shoulders are stretching, the head is not in the right position, so that's causing some stretching. So you're having basically all of these things that are stretching all at the same time in varying degrees, right? And then you go ahead and you get to tension, and then you're stretching it some more, and then you're going to create an impulse, and you're going to stretch the ligaments and the tendons too. So it's really not a wonder that you have a diminished return on the neurology once you go ahead. And so when you go ahead and we do that, it's no wonder the body shuts down. And the end result is that, as Alexei Novikov, who was a 2020 World Strongest Man champ, he told me when he was over in Dubai, he said flat out, he goes, that doctor broke my back, because he says I was strong before, I'm not strong after. And that's not my best version of a Ukrainian accent, okay? But at any rate, he's like, why do people not know this? And I just told him flatly, because I haven't shared it with them. I mean, you think about it, Brant, I'm the only person on the planet that actually is discussing this feature in chiropractic. That's crazy.
yeah. So I took what you taught me and I went back to the hockey team,
Hmm.
and I said, let's try this with a hockey team. And I ran into a roadblock with a hockey team. It's called superstition.
Uh-huh.
You can't do me different before the game. This is how you always take care of me, and I had a great game.
Right.
So to overcome the superstition, I showed up at practice, and I got him after practice. And I told the strength conditioning coach what my goal was here and why I was doing this. And I told the massage therapist the logic behind what we were doing. I didn't get too much of a report. I don't think they were as excited about it as I was. They were more worried about the upcoming game. But I do tell you, I did see the goalie at practice. I didn't see him before the game, superstition, but he had his first shutout.
Mm.
So there you go.
Coincidence? I think not. But isn't it
But I
fun
thought it
though?
was,
You were able to take what we did at an event and use it Monday. And to me, I think, any great seminar, if you can do that with confidence, the seminar was a success.
And I told you before, I was a little hands off because I know this is their guy's livelihood. And you just taught me on Thursday, and you're like, go do it on Friday. And some of the other chiropractors are there, have been with you before, they've seen you. This is my first
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
And you know me, I was a little hesitant until Matt Webb, again, 6'7", 400 some pounds, looks at me in the face and says, I want you to adjust me. And
Uh-huh.
as you explained to me, people don't tell a man like that, no. So I jumped in and started doing it, and it was really awesome because he went right out there afterwards. He put it on Instagram and started throwing these sandbags over his head, and he did 6 sandbags. I don't know how much they weigh, but he did 6 of them over 20 feet up in the air in less than 15 seconds. He didn't say thanks, Dr. Hulsebus, for the adjustment, but he did say a lot of things. But he was pretty pumped. It was pretty cool to watch. Pretty
Do you know
satisfying.
what? The thing that I'm picking up from you right now, the vibe is excitement and fun. And
Yeah,
that's exactly what I wanted for all the attendees at that event. And, not everybody stayed. There's just a couple of you guys
yeah.
that stayed. But, I really had hoped that, you would come away with some really solid things. And you have. And,
And let
and,
me,
and fun stories.
yeah, let me tell you a real life application now.
Mhm.
Because we talk about this is going to create stability in their pelvis, not looseness. So I have a patient of mine. She's been coming to this office for, and I'm blessed, I'm a third generation chiropractor. She's been coming here for 30 plus years. She's in her late 70s now, and she's a retired nurse. Her husband is at home and needs home care, but she won't get the assisted care that she needs because she used to be a nurse and she wants to take care of her husband. But her lower back and hips are killing her, and she's coming to the office every day. And so I get back from your conference and I see her on Monday. And she's not even my patient. I just said, let me go in and talk to her because she's not happy. And I said, what's going on? She told me what she's doing. I said, let me try something. So I took a 70-year-old woman and I started bending her knees and seeing what's going on. I had her lift her legs without bending her knees. I started writing my stuff down. And I said, I'm going to adjust you like a 6'7", 400-pound man, but I won't use those forces on you because you're 78. And so I did this routine with her, and we did the post checks afterwards, and she got tears in her eyes because she hasn't been able to have that stability in her lower back in years. And now she can go home and take care of her husband, and now they're not going to go to assisted living. I had a 46-year-old dad of four
That's life
boys. He's
changing, by the way.
You're
That
right,
is
yeah.
tremendous.
And then I
Good.
had a
That's awesome,
46,
Doc.
yeah, a 46-year-old man come in, and he loves soccer. He stopped playing a couple of years ago because his lower back and hips got too bad. And I said, I wonder what. So I got him on the table. I did the whole protocol. And afterwards, I said, now let's do a squat. He hasn't done a squat in 8 years. And he was able to do a full squat. And he looked right at his two boys. He had four boys, and they had two in the room. He said, we're going straight to the soccer field. I'm going to teach you guys what dad can do. And it was pretty cool to watch that happen. So the stuff I learned, I just want to tell other chiropractors, it applies to more than just athletes. It applies to more than just strongmen. It applies to more than just hockey players, football players. You can use it across the gambit with your patients, and you don't have to give up what you were doing. I sprinkle a little of this, a little bit of that with it,
Of
and
course.
if this doesn't work, I try your technique first because you don't want to hyperextend things. But afterwards, you're like, no, it's still not right. Then I put them on their side and I adjust them.
Mhm.
So the stuff that we teach in the sports world applies to everyday patients, but it doesn't take away from what you're doing. Would you agree with everything I just said?
I think the term across the board, whether you're an athlete or a grandma, is performance.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
the thing that I've learned in strength sports is the same thing I learned working on factory workers and farmers and maybe even nurses like you're talking about to strongman athletes or those people who have got rods and screws in their back or plates in their neck or artificial hips or whatever. It is all about performance and to develop a series of protocols that allow people to to be exposed to a technique that affects them so positively is is tremendous. It really is tremendous, and it all came from strength sports. And yeah, I It's interesting. I really hope that we have more people come in December because we're going to have official strongman games again in December. But you and I have talked, as well as our committee for the ICA Council on Fitness and Sports Health Science, to create these little pockets as well. Mini seminars, if you will, create a bit of a speakers bureau. So we can have people like, our friend Kevin Jackson, Dr. Jackson, do his concussion protocols, some of the extremity stuff that Dr. Joe Munategi does, some of the information that, Dr. Pete with all his years of bodybuilding, bringing that into the fold, the stuff that you yourself do with hockey, and then also, doing things with rodeo with Dr. Stuckey, for example. I mean, we've got, a wide variety of people who do cool things. And then, of course, we've got our friend, Dr. Hoft, who is, really into a lot of local sports teams, specifically high school and junior high and things along those lines, which is where most of our colleagues are probably going to be working. They're not necessarily into working at, high level athletes like you and I are, but, at the same time, that's okay because it still works. And that's the name of the game, right?
I see two times the high school athletes and I do professional athletes, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We got a curriculum the ICA Sports and Science Fitness Councils put together. And so if you'd like to have us come to your state association, we have a 5-hour program that we're doing. And afterwards, you'll receive a certificate from our sports council that shows you've completed our sports training. So this certificate you can use to market yourself to minor league teams, professional teams, the YMCA, anybody in your community. So if you're interested in learning more about that, please contact our main office. Go to chiropractic.org to learn more. And Dr. Todd, I think we've hit this point. I think we've come to the end of our talk here. I always ask this question. Do you have any final words you'd like to throw in there?
Chiropractic first. I am always amazed. I mean, I've had multiple people in the last couple of weeks that have come into my office last after spending thousands and thousands of dollars, only to find that a specific chiropractic application made all the difference. And they've been everywhere else. And I really hope to inspire young doctors who are out there to also believe in the craft that they chose as a profession and really, really work at it to get good and earn the talent over time and understand that time is required and exposure is required and challenging cases are required. That is the fee or the price that you must pay to be a wizard in this profession. And that's one thing Dr. Frogley years ago. Do you remember Dr. Frogley? Did you ever have to? Yes.
Oh,
Amazing.
yeah.
I always thought he was a wizard because, in the student clinic, we would take our student doctors up to Dr. Frogley when there was a challenging case. And he would do things that was pure wizardry. And the funny thing is he impacted me in such a way people and see the joy like I see in your face and in the tone of your voice. And that to me is just priceless, my friend.
And my advice is go find a technique that you don't think you'd ever do. Go find something that you said, I don't think I'd ever do that. The technique exists because it helps people.
Yeah.
And it's just the application of the technique. So go find somebody who uses that application correctly, learn from that person, and you just never know who's going to walk in your door. So learn all you can.
Yeah.
But this is our podcast. So if you're into sports chiropractic, we encourage you to join us. Join us in our journey. Join our sports council. Watch us, follow us, subscribe to this podcast. We're going to start announcing dates here, even more so about times and places you can come meet up with us and see us. As Dr. McDougle said, we've got chiropractors in this group that specialize in all different aspects of sports, in different sports, different arenas, whether it's the T-ball team down the team from you, or myself. I've been inside of NHL arenas taking care of the professional athletes. Dr. McDougall's traveled all over the world taking care of strongmen. Just like us, subscribe to us, listen to these podcasts, and just keep checking us out, subscribe, and share us. Other than that, I just wish everybody thank you for listening and can't wait to talk to you again.
Thanks, everyone.